my name's Wolf, and through this series of videos I'm going to introduce you to the crazy over-the-top world that nerds like me love so much, that is Warhammer 40,000. So get comfy, buckle in and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. So Games Workshop have just announced Warhammer 40k Edition 10, and there's been a lot of major changes to the game. So as a potential new player to 40k, what does this mean for you? Well, there's a few things. 1. All the core rules and the individual army rules are all now going to be completely and utterly free and available to download, which is the first time ever Games Workshop have done anything like this. So take advantage. As soon as those rules are available, get them downloaded. Secondly, it seems the size of armies are being drastically reduced. So in previous versions, to collect a full army, you would at the very least need to sell 2 internal organs, a limb and possibly your firstborn. Now you can just buy a combat patrol box and you're good to go. Third, the actual amount of rules is being condensed down to just 1 page. And fourth, they're actually making the game quicker and more accessible. So instead of putting aside a couple of hours for a game, looks like we should be able to get quite a few games in the space of a few hours. So if you're new to Warhammer 40k, this is an exciting time for you to actually start getting involved. And I for one can't wait to see these new rules, and as soon as they are out, trust me, they will be coming up on this channel. But Wolf, I hear you say, what's the downside? Well, for you as a new player, there isn't one. For me, and the 20 scripts I had lined up, they're now out the damn window. So yeah, thanks for that Games Workshop, thanks. In fact, I even called this. Go back to my first video. Towards the end of the section where I'm explaining about the tabletop, I actually said I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of any of the rules because there's a new edition coming out, and any rules I talk about, I guarantee they're going to change. Well, looks like they all did. And there's all the evidence you need that the wolf is wise. So let's get on to it about the factions. Now there are 2 sliding scales we need to take into account. That first scale being quality over quantity. Some armies rely on a small number of powerful troops. Other armies rely on massed infantry that are frankly a bit crap. The second sliding scale is how they kill you. Is it they shoot you, or is it they run up and stab you? So now we have our 2 scales in place. I'm going to be working through each of the factions, explaining whether they are quantity or quality, shooty or stabby. Now one thing to remember about every faction is they all have some form of light, medium and heavy armoured infantry. And they also have some form of light, medium and heavy armoured vehicles. It's just individual factions focus more on light infantry or heavy infantry. I'm not going to go into great detail for each of the factions, I will do that at a later video, so this is just going to be a brief idea of how each one feels on the tabletop. So first of all then, the Space Marines, the poster boys of Warhammer 40k. They are a quality army. You don't need so many of them on the tabletop. They dish out a hell of a lot of damage in range, so they are definitely more a shooty focused army. However, they are just as capable of being a stabby army. In fact, mainly they use chainsaws, so they're more of a cutty armour than a stabby army. Next you have the Grey Knights, who, like I said before, are the psychic versions of Space Marines. They are even more quality focused than Space Marines and are more stabby than shooty, but again, just as good at both. Next we have the Custodes, the Emperor's personal bodyguards. These are the super special Space Marines. Now, they are the masters of everything. They excel at both shooting and stabby, and they are also one of the highest quality troops out there, so they used to be one of the cheapest armies because you didn't need that many models. Now the Imperial Guard, which is the normal human rank and file troops, is an army that specialises primarily in bringing lots of tanks to the tabletop and lots of crap infantry. You relied on sheer weight of numbers and the firepower from the tanks. It used to make them quite an expensive army because those vehicles were not cheap and you needed a lot of miniatures on the table. Moving on, next we have the Adeptus Mechanicus, referred to as AdMech. These are the Mars-based Stark Enterprises, as I mentioned, because they build everything for everyone. Well, for all the humans anyway. I would define them as somewhere in between quantity and quality army, but they are definitely a shooty army. So you don't need as many troops as what you would Imperial Guard, but more troops than you would need if you were fielding a Space Marine. The Adeptus Sororitas, or the Sisters of Battle. Like I said, the female version of Space Marines. Now, very similar to the AdMech in the fact that they are somewhere in between quantity and quality, but because they are a short-range shooting army, they are very reliant on getting up close and personal with the enemy before they burn them to death. Right, let's start with our alien races then, and we'll start with the Tyranids. Now, the Tyranids are primarily a swarm army, so a lot of smaller miniatures. We used to make them quite expensive, we'll see how things change there. But again, they're more a stabby army. Their tactics is to get up in your face and rip you to shreds before they eat you and your friends. Next up is the Genestealer cults, which, like I said, are an offshoot of the Tyranids. Now, they're a bit hard to classify because the army can be split into two sections. You've got the cultists themselves, which on their own are crap. They rely on sheer weight of numbers to put as much hot lead down range as possible. And then on the other end of the scale, they have the Genestealers themselves, which are the apex predator when it comes to getting in your face and ripping it off before they eat you and your friends. Now, I'm going to bunch all three of our Space Elf factions together because they all pretty much play the same. Those factions being the Eldar, or the Craftworld Eldari, the Dark Eldar, or the Drakari, or the Harlequins, which are still the Harlequins. The fact of the matter is, though, all three of these factions are glass hammers. Now, their units are very much quality, but unlike Space Marines, where a Space Marine can either shoot or go hand to hand, all the Eldari, Drakari or Harlequins are either very, very good at shooty or very, very good at stabby. If you try and get a stabby unit to go shooty or a shooty unit to go stabby, you're going to lose. The troops are not very resilient, but they are very, very good at what they do, which is why they're glass hammers. And next we have the Necrons, like I said, the space skeleton robots that have the annoying habit of getting back up after you kill them. Yes, they do actually do this on the tabletop. More of a quality army rather than a quantity, as their guns are quite powerful. They are very much a shooty army, slow, relentless, just constantly keep coming, and like I said, if you kill them, there is a good chance they're going to stand back up, just like any good horror undead faction should. I'm going to point out at this point, they are the only faction as well that can have their troops stand back up. Moving on, we have the Tau, the anime-looking battle suits. Now, they are the best shooty army in the game. That is also their downfall because they are only a shooty army. They have no stabby abilities at all whatsoever. In fact, if you can get close enough to grab one of these by the scruff of its neck, it's screwed. And the Leagues of Votum, the Space Dwarves. They are, as you would imagine, the trope of dwarves. They are tough, they are a shooty army, slow moving, but they can take as much punishment as they give out. The Orcs. Now, as I've mentioned before, they are often seen as a comic relief. It's joked that a lot of Orc players just play Orcs for the grins. If they happen to win as well, so be it. There's a good chance that all the most powerful weapons you've got in an Orc army is actually going to blow up on you and kill half your own army. Now, Orcs themselves are crap at shooting, but are really good at stabby. They rely, again, on sheer weight of numbers just to get them across the battlefield before they lose too many troops. But once they do get across the battlefield, they can easily tear Space Marines apart. Right, on to our two Chaos factions. First of all, we have the Chaos Space Marines and their cultists. Now, the Chaos Space Marines are just like the normal Space Marines. They're very tough, very good at shooting, and also very good at hand-to-hand. The Chaos Cultists are just like Imperial Guard. They're crap. They rely on sheer weight of numbers. Now, you can also put with them demons or have demons separately. The demons themselves have no shooting abilities at all whatsoever. They are all stabby. Some of them are far better at it than others. So, depending which god they're from, if they're from Khorne, who's like the god of war, then they are very, very good at stabby. If they are from Nurgle, who is the god of pestilence and decay, they're not as good as stabby as Khorne units, but they are much more resilient, so can take the incoming fire as they head across the battlefield to do their stabby. The ones from Slaanesh rely on sheer speed to get them across the battlefield before they do their stabby, and the ones from Tzeentch rely on magic to hide them to get them across the battlefield before they do their stabby. And rounding off, we have the Knights. The Knights are two-legged, gigantic walking mechs that are around 20 foot tall each. Now, like I said, they come in two flavours, which is normal and chaos. They're both exactly the same when it comes to rules, they just look slightly different, that's all. They are definitely a quantity army, as you only need 2 to 4, and that's it, your army's done. but when they can cost up to £100, or I think they're about $150 each, they can get somewhat expensive. Now when it comes to their abilities, they are primarily a shooty army, and they're very good at that, but can also be set up to do stabby, which they're also very good at. The downside of the knights is, because there are so few models on the battlefield, every single one of them becomes a bullet magnet. And there we have it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. Better still, if you know somebody who could do with a bit of noob-splaining on Warhammer, then share this video with them. And at any point, if you learned something or laughed, then please hit that subscribe button. I won't ever be doing a Patreon or a merch store, so that subscribe button is the best way you can show your support and thanks from me. Now I'll catch you on the next video, where I will no doubt have something interesting and funny that you can learn more about 40k from. What that will be at this moment in time, I'm not sure. But until then, goodbye.